2019 further winds down, the Central Bank of Nigeria says they expect Africa's largest economy to grow by 2.38% in the fourth quarter of the year. He also said the CBN will in due course address challenges in the cocoa, cassava, beef and cattle ranching, dairy and fish sectors.
One of the critical areas of discussion during the pre-event chat that the president of the ADB had with the media yesterday was where women and SMEs stood in a program of this nature. You've just sat on a panel which focused on investing in women for accelerated growth. Can you talk us through the key highlights of that panel session?
When you think of the theme of the panel and you think of the continent, about 50% of the population of the continent, women.
And some happy news for local investors in Nigeria, as Nigeria's Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele says banks should provide loans to institutions in employment elastic sector of the economy at about 9% interest rate. Well, now, Jake, from initially considering a range between selling at $13 per share to $16 per share, we eventually saw Jumia come to the mid-range of 14.5. From the information that you have been exposed to, or investors or e-commerce execs that you have spoken to, have you had conversations around proper pricing based on valuations, maybe, Jake?
Well, there's been a lot of vetting that's gone into this. I know
eyes on Nigeria as the country begins to collect votes in its sixth presidential democratic rounds of elections. Definitely here we're reaching you from the Collation Center, the room within the International Conference Center here in Abuja, where collations will take place, and ultimately we will see announcements in the next couple of days. Now, we'll be looking to get INEC to answer questions, really coded questions like, does the postponement of Nigeria's election mean now that INEC has 7 more days to address issues of disenfranchisement coming from the burning down of some INEC offices, the loss of PVCs, the inadequate time for Nigerians to pick up some of their PVCs? Will INEC now say within the next 7 days they'll be able to address these issues? These are some of the questions that we'll be looking to get INEC to answer to at the press conference. Also, were sensitive materials disbursed earlier before the cancellation, or were they not? We did get to speak to some polling officers at their units this morning. Those are the core members that we spoke to earlier, who said that they did take delivery of some non-sensitive materials. So we'll be looking to see if INEC will be able to answer questions as to whether or not those materials were effectively retrieved such that they were not tampered with, and if this will not in any way question the credibility of Nigeria's election. They will come to answer these questions that members of the press and the observers are waiting to get answers to. You can hear the audio checks going on behind me. Chris, it will take a long while, I think, before we begin to start to talk about just even contemplating settling down as far as Nigeria's presidential elections go. I'm currently speaking to you from inside the Collation Center. We are back here in about 30 minutes. We expect that the ceremony during which the certificate of return to office will be handed over to the President Muhammadu Buhari will commence.
And what was the response from Nigerians to the announcement that Buhari, in fact, will continue for a second term?
So yeah, Fifi, we did take a drive around town, the metropolis in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory where we are at. Currently, we've been here for a few days monitoring the collation up until the announcement of the results, middle of the night at about 3:11 a.m. And we've been following reactions also on social media. And I tell you, Fifi, categorically, it's a mixed bag.
Thank you so much, Christy, for being here today. It's good to be back in the studio with you, sir.
Extent, would you say the creation of a German desk will maybe influence inflows of FDI into Nigeria?
We hope very much, because first of all, there's a lack of information. Whenever we talk with German companies, there is not so much information about the potential and the opportunities in Africa. And this is why also FDIs are not forthcoming, because still the image of Africa is rather negative, saying Africa is a continent full of risk. No, Africa is also a continent full of opportunities.
If bankability will, say for a while, remain as confusing as it is now definition-wise, then companies and investors have to look to alternative source of funding for liquidity. To what extent are these available for Nigerians and Africans?
So Nigeria is fortunate in that we are a relatively wealthy country. So what we need to do as Nigerians is find ways to fund our own projects. And by funding our own projects, I mean the private sector, I mean the government has to improve awareness of and access to intervention funds. Government also has to provide more guarantees.
I'd like to know what issues in the first place necessitated a probe of the project by the Senate.
Well, this is a very good question you've asked. We are not saying that we don't want this investment, but we are looking at the value for money audit, because this investment is going to be placed on the nation's assets, which is the oil. And we are only saying, yes, this money has been put together by a team of core investors on this project. We are saying if 16.3 billion is the actual figure, let us be sure that yes, it's a 16.3 billion naira contract.
I know at some point in your talk you were making references to there was no need for conflict, no need for crisis. It did come across as maybe those were your views on restructuring and devolution of powers in Nigeria. I'd like you to shed more light on what exactly you meant.
You know, I think we can have this conversation on the arrangements we have as a country in economic terms and in rational terms.
It is a gathering of economic experts and banking doyens here in Lagos, Nigeria, as First Bank holds its flag hoisting ceremony, one of the significant events marking the bank's 125th anniversary in Nigeria. Thanks to you for watching. I am Christy Cole.
So two exciting things for this policy now: increased lending to real sector and extended pay time for the real sector.
Correct.
But the turnaround effect now.
It may come.
Liquidity,
so once
pressure.
it gets heated, then it would. If the economy were to heat up, then it would now put inflationary pressure on the economy, and that is the not so rosy side of the equation.
Do we want the CBN to turn around this policy?
So CBN has to look at this in a very cautionary manner. So yeah, let's grow the credit. Let's do some of the intervention programs. Heck, let's even close the border, right? But it may put certain pressures on the economy, and with what the CBN gets in terms of statistics, you know, one of the things I shared with a friend is that the closure of the border will give a lot of PhD students in economics enough data to do serious analysis about our economy, the structural effects and so on and so forth. And I believe that for now, people should actually with caution look at what's going on and take positions vis-a-vis how inflation is going to pan out. And it may also put pressure on exchange rate
approach
or not.
Cautiously. That sounds
correct.
like a good place to leave it for now.
Right.
Many thanks to you for joining us as
Thank you
usual
very
on
much.
the show. Kiari Buka is the former chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group.